Evening, folks. Brian here, Geomagnetic Earthwatch. It is Thursday, March 12, 2026. We need to start talking about global famines, the coming global famines which are a part of the signs of the end times, along with the wars and the rumors of wars, the nations rising against nations and kingdoms against kingdoms, and the great earthquakes which are coming in diverse places, and one place after another, and another, and another. Then comes the famines and the pestilences. Don't think you're going to be whisked away. You're going to be here, because these are simply the birth pains which precede the return of Jesus Christ. This is not God's wrath upon the church. I know some people are going to say that. That doesn't start until the midpoint of the period of tribulation. That is the Great Tribulation. These are the early warning signs, telling us to prepare, first and foremost spiritually, of course, but in other means as well. Let's talk about what's going on in the Persian War. So let's just call it what it is. It's the Persian War, which is going to lead to the global war. Well, everybody's thinking about the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and gas prices going up. Almost everybody's not realizing that 1/3 of the global requirement for fertilizers comes out of the Persian Gulf. Not anymore, not for long, not for a while. So you combine that sudden shortage along with the destructive weather events just starting because of the chaotic breakdown of the jet streams, the breakdown of the polar vortexes, the heat domes, the floods, the increased levels of ultraviolet radiation, which affects not just human DNA, but the DNA of plants. All of these situations and events combined is going to result in global food losses, famines. Then there's going to be the wars for the food and the water. Now, as many know, I grow my own food. I like to be self-sufficient. I don't want to be dependent on the system. I do what I do because I knew about 9 years ago where we would be right now, but more with the deterioration of the protective magnetic field and the increase in ultraviolet radiation. But this too, and I have to be blunt, I have to be realistic if you're thinking about growing your own food. I encourage it, but I'm also going to be giving you my honesty and experience about being self-sufficient. Several things you need. You need space. It can be done because I'm only on a 1/4 acre home lot, and I'm using about 900 to 1,000 square feet. Next, you need materials, different types of materials. You need developed practical knowledge and skills. You need the time. You need the water resources. You need all your growing aids like fertilizers, natural fertilizers, bone meal, your plant-specific fertilizers. I do it for a number of reasons. Food security for one, because I recognize the food supply chains disruptions, contaminated food often, and the lack of quality and quantity of food. Lots of other things you got to learn. There's a whole lot. The list is too long. Succession planting, learning to grow vertical if you don't have enough horizontal space. I also do it to maintain our health and trying to keep our immune systems topped off as best as we can. I don't go to the grocery stores. How long has that produce been sitting on the shelves, on the racks? Where did it come from, the other side of the world? Could it be contaminated? What was it sprayed with? You need to think about building skills for being self-sufficient. You also have to learn things like preserving your food, blanching, freezing, vacuum sealing, canning, and so forth. Unfortunately, I think the mass majority of the people, they do not have the capacity to be growing their own food. This is why I've emphasized wherever I have these food talks, try and source your food bulk learn your canning methods and so forth. When we're talking about what's happening in the Persian Gulf, a lot of people are talking about strategic oil reserves. People, there's no strategic reserve of fertilizers. When the fertilizer supply stops, there will be no food production. So while everybody else tracks supply chain issues, risks on global grain shipments, oil prices, freight rates, very few people are recognizing or overlook the world's dependency on fertilizers. And again, 33% of the fertilizers comes out of the Persian Gulf. The vast majority of urea comes out of the Persian Gulf. Fertilizer is a byproduct from liquid natural gas. You're talking about a substantial reduction in the availability of fertilizer globally. Now, do you think all the farm equipment required for prepping the soils, dropping the seeds, dropping the fertilizer before the seeds, dropping the fertilizer every 6 weeks, harvesting, etc., you think these are all electric vehicles? No, they all need fuels. This is part of the farmer's input costs, fuels, rising cost of fuels, as well as fertilizers or lack of fertilizers coming up. Think about this. While you're thinking about this, so let me explain the biology of plant growth. Now let's say there's only a 10% reduction in fertilizer. Does that mean 10% less yield? No, it's much more than that. You see, nitrogen is key for photosynthesis, protein production, and cell division. Crops follow a nitrogen response curve. At optimal application rates, you're on a steep part of the curve. If there's a 10 to 20% drop in nitrogen, that can result in a crop output loss of 30 to 50%. Less oxygen means less chlorophyll, leading to a 20 to 40% drop in light capture, and so forth. So it's essential not only just for the plants, but also in soil preparation for the plants. Now let's get back to some more brutal honesty. People say you can grow food in 5-gallon buckets on your balcony. Sure you can, but let's be realistic. Take potatoes, something which is fairly easy to do if you know what you're doing. So that 5-gallon bucket needs to have a rich, loamy soil, rich in compost. Before you plant your potato seed, you need to do this first and then reapply it every 4 weeks. This is an example of a specialty fertilizer for potatoes. So in a 5-gallon bucket, 1 or 2 potatoes like this. If it's a baked potato, you got 3 eyes, so you're going to have 3 plants coming out. It's going to take anywhere from 90 to 110 days before it's ready. It'll produce enough potatoes for a family of 4 for 1 meal. You might have a couple of potatoes left over for the next day. Do the math. How many buckets you're going to need to feed your family just for potatoes for a year? Now, potato has starch, so it's a good source of secondary fuel for the body cell. You got to do the math. You have to make sure you have enough light or artificial light, water. You can put that potato seed in the bucket, water every once in a while. After 3 months, pull the plant out, you can have absolutely nothing. You can have absolutely nothing if you don't have this, as an example. So this, there's a new equation or an input, a new data input when you're thinking about bug out locations or a safer location from Earth's disaster cycles. This includes food production, being in an area where you can produce your food, being in a community with like-minded people to produce food, being close to, say, cow pastures, you know, for the cow manure, which is a fertilizer, and so forth. You need to think about that. You need to think about the coming famines. It's not going to be restricted to the odd country in Africa, for example. So again, a lot of people, a lot of countries are calculating their strategic oil reserves. Well, we have to tap into it. One country might have 9 days, another country might have 30 days. Japan, I think they have 264 days. I may be incorrect, but about that many. This war is going to go on. It's going to keep on going on. If this is the beginning of the tribulation period, it's only going to intensify and get worse. The wars. And about the same time, the great earthquakes in one place after another and another and another. Then the wars for resources like food, fertilizer, water, and oil. Famines, folks. Here's another one, just off the top of my head. Propane. Propane is needed by farmers for drying out grains, for example. Propane is not something that's mined. It's a byproduct. It's a byproduct from crude oil refinery, natural gas processing. Propane's. It's essential for farmers. The list goes on and on and on. I don't think people realize the consequences of the Strait of Hormuz being closed off, and it's going to be closed for a very, very long time, as is their right to do so. So, I told you before this war started that there's going to be food shortages just because of the natural changes that's happened to the planet, with the changing jet streams and the polar vortexes and so forth. And now you're going to add in either no fertilizers, or what little might get out is going to cost the farmers a great, great deal more. And that's going to put them under. If you're a little guy like me, like I already know, I knew for a long time, which is why I start buying bulk of this stuff as much as I can. That's one example. So a little talk about the coming famines and being self-sufficient and being realistic about growing your own food. You do it for about 10 or 11 months of the year. If you have properly insulated beds like I do, you can keep on growing and growing and growing. You can start early, finish late, grow lots, store lots. I'm going to have a lot of people in my neighborhood coming to visit me to see how I'm doing it. I'm not worried about people stealing my food, not this year. Maybe next year, but I'm not going to be here next year. Finally, let's talk about the Deagle Report. The Deagle organization is a private think tank, an intelligence organization that reports to NSA, CIA, top military leaders, government officials, Fortune 500. In 2014, they put out a prediction report, substantial reduction in global population and economic loss for 2025. I think their numbers was correct, but they just got the year maybe a little bit off by 1 year. Maybe it's going to be the Deagle Report 2026, going into 2027. Anyway, folks, that's all.